Hi, my name is Amy Conklin, and this is my case study for EDL 850 on internet use violations. So we're going to begin with, what do we know? The first thing we know is that we are in an affluent school in an affluent neighborhood. So families, the parents have high-paying jobs, and the students have all of the luxuries and technologies that go along with that, but also have kind of high-stakes pressure involved with this school. The students expect to do well. The parents expect their kids to do well so that they can get good scholarships and go on to get high-paying jobs just like them. We have an experienced and respected principal. He's been given awards. He really strives to maintain that high level at his school. And he has been there for multiple years and is respected by the families and his staff. We do have a relatively new teacher. It's her second year. There has been some concerns given the rigor and environment that she has used in her classroom. The principal has tried to support her in that and given her some recommendations, but she's chosen not to respond and do what she's been directed to do. The principal has fielded concerns about the teacher from both parents and students, again regarding that rigor and her expectations and the overall stress that the students are feeling. These students are wanting to be valedictorians so that they can get those good scholarships, and they're concerned about their grades that they may be receiving in her classroom. And then at the very end, we now have this threatening Facebook page that the teacher received an email for. She looked at the page. It had some offensive language, some real criticism of her teaching. And then probably the most concerning was the end quote that said, "Who wants Miss Tate to disappear?" And so that was very concerning to Miss Tate. What do we need to know about this concerning problem that we have within the high school? One of the first things we need to figure out is who created this Facebook page, who went to the level of doing inappropriate internet use to create such a negative space. What students are involved, so what students are members of this page, what students have put information on this page, and perhaps how far outreaching is it into our school? Have multiple levels of students seen this, or has it only been just a few? How long has this site been up, perhaps, so that we can maybe know how many students are involved? I also feel like we need to know more about Miss Tate's classroom atmosphere. It sounds like there have been concerns. It sounds like some recommendations have been given. Has the principal actually been in the classroom? Has he done observations? Has he really seen what's going on so that maybe even more specific recommendations can be given? Through all of this, so what's the problem? What do we really need to take a look at? The first problem is this threatening Facebook page. Again, we need to figure out who created this, the students involved, and get it shut down so that we don't have that negative culture in our school. We have a teacher right now who is threatened. She feels afraid. She's even staying at her parents' house because she doesn't feel safe to be home. That's a big problem. Teachers need to feel safe, especially around their students. And then we also have the parent-student concern with this teacher about the rigor and the expectations and the negative atmosphere that's happening in her classroom. So those are the problems that we have to face now. So with this problem, what are we going to do, and what strategies should be taken? The first thing that I would do as this building principal is I would talk directly with the district technologist. I would make sure that I used clear communication on exactly what I needed. I would also provide a timeline, because this is pretty time sensitive, that I would want to let this person know I need it as soon as possible. This is not something I need you to sit on. I'm going to need answers quickly. And then I would also want to provide all of the information to this staff member so that they could have easy access and would help them in the problem-solving process. I would also then want to interview students. I would want to talk with several students. We do have the teacher that she's identified a particular student that she thinks might be involved, but I don't want to assume that that particular student is guilty. I would want to talk to lots of students, not only to find the creator of the web page, but also know other students' involvement and how many students have actually seen this page. I'd also want to use non-leading questions when talking with students. I wouldn't want to direct them in one way or the other. I would want to get legitimate responses from them. And in all this process with talking with the students, I would want to make sure I was maintaining respect for them. Again, not assuming that they're guilty and really letting them tell me their side of the story. What other strategies and what else would be my plan? I would definitely want to continue to work with Miss Tate. I would want to make sure she has a very strong mentor teacher that she's working with so that they can guide her with how to form relationships with their students, keeping the high rigor. That's something I would want Miss Tate to keep, but really focus on that professional development of building relationships and having a positive culture in her classroom. I would want to get in her classroom, do tons of observations so that I could give her specific feedback, as well as clear expectations. What do I exactly want to see from her classroom? The last proposed plan that I have is I would want to educate students on internet usage. Too often in secondary education, I hear from staff, they assume or they think, all kids should already know. That's not always the case, so we have to provide explicit direct teaching to students, especially on internet usage. As an adult in the building, I would want to model appropriate usage, and I would also want all of my staff to model that appropriate usage. And then I would want there to be some kind of consequences already built in for inappropriate use. So I would make sure in the student handbook or in board policies that we have put in there what would be the consequences and disciplinary actions for not using the internet appropriately. So in my resolution of this problem, how did I promote the academic success and personal well-being of every student? First, I'm going to find students involved, and I'm going to talk with multiple students about this problem. I'm not going to assume that anyone is guilty, and that's how I'm going to protect the well-being of every student. I'm going to use disciplinary actions that have already been outlined in the student handbook so that it won't be a shock to the students. For the most part, to really make sure that every student has good academic success and I'm protecting their well-being, I'm going to definitely work with Ms. Tate to support that classroom atmosphere. And then I'm going to educate the students on internet usage. So let's think about this problem, kind of debrief it a little bit. What was I thinking, feeling, and valuing? While I was going through this problem, I was thinking, man, how do I support this teacher? She feels threatened. She feels afraid. How can I support her? I was also thinking, boy, how do I find the creator of this web page? Students are really savvy nowadays. They know technology so much better than we do. How am I going to get to the bottom of this? And then really, how can I promote a positive climate? The teacher's afraid, the students are upset, parents are upset. We've got to get back to a positive environment. What was I feeling? I wanted to protect this teacher most of all. She's staying at her parents' house because she's so afraid. How do I protect her and make sure she feels safe to come back to school? How do I protect the students? I don't want to feel that and assume that someone's already guilty. I want to really get to the bottom of it. And then also I'm feeling intense pressure. As a building administrator, you're going to get pressure from your staff when they feel like a student has done something wrong. And then if you take disciplinary action, you're going to get pressure and some pushback from parents and students. So that's a lot to handle. I'm going through this problem. What was I valuing? Definitely valuing that positive classroom climate and teachers building relationships with their students so they can get the most from them. A safe environment. No student can learn if they don't feel safe. And really, no teacher can teach if they don't feel safe. So we've got to come back to that safe environment. And then I also value explicit teaching. We can't always assume that students know. We explicitly have to teach it. So when you have a problem, there's always unresolved issues that you're going to have to continue to work through. And those are the concerns from Miss Tate's classroom. That's not going to be a quick fix. That's going to be a process. And so moving through that process with a mentor teacher, professional development, observations, other unresolved issues, if this Facebook page, if we do end up doing disciplinary action, parents are going to be upset. This is an affluent neighborhood. Parents aren't going to take it well if their students have done something wrong, and there could be some consequences that go along with that. And then also, it's going to be a long-term process to teach students about social media and how to appropriately use that. So as the educational leader, how did I promote the success of every student by acting with integrity? I wanted to not just take Miss Tate's word for what was happening. I asked her to stop, send me the webpage, let me take a look at it before I made any snap judgments. So that's acting with integrity. I also tried to calm Miss Tate and tell her that we would get to the bottom of it and that I would support her through the process. And then I also examined all angles. I didn't just focus on the one student that Miss Tate had talked about. I wanted to really talk to multiple students. Again, as the educational leader, how did I promote the success of every student by acting with fairness? That plan to talk to multiple students was acting with fairness. I wasn't going to single out one student. I was going to get multiple viewpoints and really pin down what was happening. I was also going to ask that district technologist to provide me with proof. And that way I would ensure that I was acting with fairness. And then as far as the disciplinary action goes, I would go to what was in the student handbook or what was written in board policy so that students knew up front what the rules were and what the consequences were. And lastly, as an educational leader, how did I promote the success of every student by acting in an ethical manner? In discussing all of these issues with students, with staff, with the district technologist, I would keep information confidential. I would only share information that I had to share, and I wouldn't be spreading this around with the staff or talking with other teachers. I would be only working with the direct people that I needed to work with. I also acted in an ethical manner by protecting all involved. There was a protection of staff, and there was a protection of students and their families, and continued protection of students and families by working with Miss Tate on her classroom. And lastly, I acted in an ethical manner by wanting to educate students. We can't always assume that students know. We have to teach them and then continue to follow through with that. So thank you. That's my case study for EDL 850.